come straight to you.
Straight to me.
Okay. We're starting a little bit late, so.
Still give me the regular time.
Well,
and
regular
this is-
time. Okay.
Cause she got video or something she gonna show afterwards.
It should be live on Facebook. Are you getting it?
Yes. All right.
The what? 2 home day.
But there's no audio. Hey, what did you do to everything? My audio's jacked up on this streaming, and I couldn't get camera 4 to work at all. I'm assuming you've moved camera 4, but what did you do to the audio? What did you do to the audio? Because I'm running video. What else did you? And you know Carver's not here. Are you getting audio? Are you getting sound at all? No, we're not getting any sound.
But I am getting you.
You hear me talking now?
But I am getting you.
Oh, yes.
Hello, today is Hump Day, and we're so glad that you're able to be with us this day as we continue with this great series that we have been doing. I have with me, beside me, my good friend, my buddy, my pal, my confidant, whatever I might want to call him, David Birch, who's been here since St. Stephen been here. He is head of the
IT department.
the what?
IT department.
The IT department. Also, he's a teacher of church folks that's on Thursdays at 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
If you got an opportunity, you might want to visit that class.
Come on by multipurpose room 1. I guarantee you'll get fed.
Both ways. When he's saying that, he means it now. Both ways, you'll get fed spiritually and you'll get fed physically.
Right.
And I mean, this is every Thursday. Yeah, I said it every Thursday.
Every Thursday.
That they do that. And you certainly would enjoy that. See, here at St. Stephen, we just don't do Sunday school.
Right.
It's everyday school.
Everyday school.
Everyday school. And so David is one of our great teachers. Has a great class. So come on out on Thursday and see for yourself. Glad to have you, David.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we got a great lesson, great series. We're talking about the gangster disciples.
Gangster disciples.
Gangster disciples. And as we said to you previously, all of us cannot be a John the Baptist. We cannot be Joseph. We cannot be Goody Two Shoes. Some of us are just gangsters.
That's correct.
That we tripped over things, we fell down, we get back up, but we want you to see the transforming power. Because sitting here looking at us, we haven't always been in church, especially on a Wednesday, teaching on a hump day. Never even thought such a thing would happen to me. What about you?
That's definitely the case.
But nobody is beyond God's redemptive power. And our lesson today is riddle. I see something
You don't see.
you don't see. So you remember that game?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
That's a game. Now, some of you will remember we used to play that game, kids coming up. And that's what we will see. And that's what Jesus is saying to us. I see something you my church, my people don't see.
That's always been the case. We have a tendency of discounting people, and in our discounting of people, we're thankful to God that He always has seen right through whatever barrier we
Yes.
might even put up to keep Him from seeing through us.
From even seeing us. You're
Right.
right. You're right. That's a good observation. Is that he can see around the corner, down the street, through the barriers, over, and he can even see in the dark.
Right.
So when you think that you're doing something nobody can see, he said, "Peekaboo,
I see you."
There you go. So today we're going to talk about Matthew. Last couple of weeks we've talked about Manasseh, we talked about Nebuchadnezzar. This time we're going to talk about Matthew, one of the disciples. Remember we said gangster disciples. So all of us have been a gangster sometimes, and we're hoping that all of us have become disciples, and that is learners of Jesus. So we're going to start with Matthew, okay?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Okay, so our lesson starts at Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. I love Matthew 9:9. You can easy to remember that. It says, as Jesus was walking along, the next four words are so important. He saw a man.
It says quite a bit about Jesus.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It says quite a bit.
Right.
Because rest of them didn't say it, but he saw a man.
Right.
Yeah. Named Matthew. Now this is Matthew writing this. Now, okay, let's finish. Matthew sitting at his tax collector's booth. Follow me and be my disciples, Jesus said to him. So Matthew got up and followed him.
He didn't ask any questions.
Didn't say anything.
We would have had to know now where am I going? How far is it going to be for us to get there?
I think I would have first said, what you say?
Right.
Follow you where?
Right.
Where are we going?
Right.
But it said, wonder what made Matthew just get up and follow.
My guess would be what transpired right before this, because if you jump back a few verses, you'll see that Jesus had just healed a paralytic man.
Okay.
And the Mark passage, I think it's Mark chapter 2, makes reference to the surroundings around where Jesus was so crowded
Yes, yes.
that the only way that they could get this man inside, this paralytic man inside to see Jesus, for Jesus to see him,
Yes.
was for him to be sent down through the roof.
Take the roof off the sucker.
Take the roof off.
You remember that song?
Oh yeah, most
Tear the
definitely.
roof off the sucker.
Right.
So they took the roof off. And
They
then what
took the
happened?
roof off and dropped the man down for Jesus to see. And as a result of that, he was told to get up off of his bed and walk.
And he did it.
And he did it. And the people were amazed. And right after that was when the signifiers came.
Whoops.
The Pharisees,
Always got him in the crowd,
who
folks.
were not fair, you see.
Yeah, they're not fair. You see,
Right.
right? And
And
the sad you see, they sad. You
They
see.
are sad, you see. And as a result, they praise God, sending the man out with great authority.
Okay.
That's what the Matthew passage is, Matthew chapter 9.
Okay.
But fear swept through the crowd because they saw this happen. This man that had been paralyzed, all of a sudden he's able to get up and walk. And it is right after that he's walking along a little bit further,
Yes.
and he tells Matthew, come follow me.
Yeah. So I would imagine with all this buzz, with all this commotion, everybody said, "Whoa, did you see that?
Right.
What happened? This man." I imagine they went all through it and let him down, and he was paralyzed. That dude back over there never had been able. He'd been bedridden, and Jesus had him to walk. And I imagine Matthew heard it because they say faith comes by
Hearing.
Oh, talk to me.
Most definitely.
Faith comes by hearing. So now all of a sudden, here comes this man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine Matthew sitting up there writing and looking, and bless God, here the man, Jesus walks up to him and says,
Follow me.
follow me. Whoa, I guess I would have said, got on up and followed him too. And so, but let's talk about what, because we said riddle, read. I see something you don't see.
Right.
So, let's talk about, well, what did Jesus see? See, we got eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let me see if I can get this quote together. Steve Wonder
Mm-hmm.
said, man doesn't lack vision just because he can't see.
Right.
Woo! That's good. That's good.
Most definitely.
And many of us can see, and we don't have vision, nor do we have sight.
Right.
Okay, so Jesus saw one thing, and the people saw another.
Most definitely. The people saw a tax collector. They saw that somebody that was always ready to cheat them,
Yeah.
always ready to be in their pocket, and that was always unjust. That he was immoral. He was a bit money hungry,
Okay.
because that was the means by which he got his money. That was also the means by which he collected money for the government.
Wait a minute. Let me stop you right here. I know you're on a roll, and that's good. But now, David, it sounds like they have stereotyped Matthew, the tax collector. Because you said they saw a tax collector, they saw a person who was money hungry, saw a person who was dishonest, out for gain.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not stereotyping?
That's
When we see-
stereotyping, but sometimes that stereotyping also goes with what people have seen.
What they've
When-
seen, but it don't make everybody.
It
the
doesn't make everybody the same way.
Okay.
But if 90% of the time, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck,
Might be a duck.
it might be a duck.
Might be a duck.
Might be a duck.
It may not be.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so that's good. That's good. So they saw the tax collector, and so he was cut off, ostracized, criticized.
Right.
Don't want to be bothered. No, we don't want that dude because he's a
Right.
tax collector.
Right. And that's also where, well, yeah, I'm going to go on and bring it right on up to modern
Bring
terms.
it on up to today.
That's where many church folk make a mistake.
How's that?
We see the drunk in the street. We see the drug addict. And we don't think about their circumstances. We don't think about what has got them there.
Then you go on to Midland.
Hey, sometimes that's what we're called to do.
Because, you know, I'm going to let you get back to make your point. Because what happens when I come to church every Sunday morning,
Mm-hmm.
I come out 18th Street,
Mm-hmm.
and I see.
My sisters.
So wait a minute. Ooh, I shouldn't have invited him, folks, because I don't see their circumstances. I see, how in the world y'all out here doing this? I don't see them as people, I guess, as much as I see what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
or what they have done.
That was one of the things that I had the pleasure of growing up experiencing. There was a young man that was brought into my family's life that most people saw him as being a drunk. Most people saw him as being a very proficient cusser. Most people saw him as not a very lovable family not a very lovable person by most familiar standards. But he had within him the ability to teach. God forbid you put him in the kitchen.
Oh, you talking about my buddy?
You talking about your buddy.
You talking about my buddy?
Right. That Negro could
Could cook.
Oh my. It made no sense.
I remember when you introduced him to me. I thought, say what? No, because you had pretty lady.
Right.
You know, didn't have teeth. Had pretty lady.
Right.
And I thought, oh, dude, come on. But he was one of the greatest people that I got to know.
I did not have the patience to teach a 10-year-old how to tie their shoes.
But he did.
Oh yes, he did.
He did.
And got great pleasure out of it. So that let me know that if he could teach a 10-year-old, I'm called to teach.
Yeah.
But I couldn't teach a 10-year-old to tie his shoes.
But I love that fella.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah, I love-
definitely.
And you know, I said at his funeral.
Right.
I said, now, you know, I'm not going to ever forgive you because you died before you married me.
Right.
Because he came to see me. He said, I'm marry you.
Right.
And then his turned around and told him, I'm going to marry you. I
Right.
said, wait, you told me. Oh, that's right, I'm going to marry you. I'm gonna marry you. And that's it, you're right. Because what you will see when you saw him, and maybe he had 1 or 2 beers too many that
Right.
day, and didn't talk so well. And you were like, don't be. But he was one of the greatest people that you could know.
Most definitely. Heart of gold,
Yes.
willing to do anything, sometimes at your expense,
Yeah.
but for anybody.
But yeah. So, in other words, the people see what we do.
People see what we do.
Jesus see the person.
The whole man. He saw a man.
He saw a man.
Right.
4 words, a man.
Right.
And in that man, he saw this man's life was useless.
Right.
But it can become useful.
Right. Most
A
definitely.
life being wasted. Oh, and he saw a sinner who needed a savior.
He was in need of a savior, just like us all.
Yeah. That's what that's why I like that song. He looked beyond my faults.
And saw my need.
Oh, say it. Oh, you're a songwriter.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all know that, yeah. So Jesus saw the person and not the position.
Most definitely.
Saw a working man. But you know, now let me stop right there for a moment. Because I just read it again. Jesus never called anybody who wasn't already doing something.
Right.
Now, y'all need to hear that. Jesus never called anybody who wasn't already doing something. Matthew, he was collecting taxes. James and John were mending their nets.
Right.
Peter and Andrew, they were fishing.
Right.
Moses was tending sheep. In other words, God will get the person who's already doing something. So if you think about sitting back waiting for God to call you, it ain't gonna happen. Be busy. Cause he don't need no lazy. We got enough lazy folks. He got enough lazy Christians that come on their own.
Lazy people.
Yeah.
They don't have to be just Christians.
Mhm.
We got enough lazy people.
Yeah. So Jesus saw the man, called the man, and he followed him immediately.
Immediately. He didn't say, well, he didn't make a lot of excuses.
No.
We are great excuse makers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first let me go home and take care of my dog. Let me go do this. Let me go do that. But he immediately was changed. Jesus changed the man.
Changed him. Well, okay, he changed him. So what's changed about Matthew? I mean, is he still a tax collector?
Well, that's a good question. I think sometimes we get so caught up in titles or positions that we actually forget that there's a person there.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that he changed was he changed his name.
Changed his name. Okay. I can go along with that. What do you
He changed his name to Levi,
mean?
which means joined, which means that this is somebody that now is a part of something where once before he was ostracized. It doesn't take, as Pastor says, it doesn't take much size to criticize,
Ooh,
and likewise,
that's good.
it doesn't take much size to ostracize,
Okay.
because many times we're looking at the person through our eyes, not through God's eyes.
Okay.
And it is only through looking through God's eyes that we really begin to see the worth of people. And at the rate that people are leaving up out of here,
Ooh.
I
I've never seen anything like it.
I dare say the number of people that have left, some of them could have been the cure for cancer. Some
That's
of them
true.
could have been,
That's true. That's true.
but people are leaving up out of here by various means. The world saw him as because of his crooked ways,
Okay.
or his money hungry ways.
Okay.
He was sort of hated, but God gave him a gift. God, I really believe, just saw there was already something within him that needed to be developed.
Yeah.
And as a
agree with
result
you.
of that development, he became one of the great gospel writers.
I agree with that. I think he sees what we do, and he just changed courses. Like, David sat out there and he was a shepherd.
Right.
And needless to say, Christ identified with shepherds, but he made him also the shepherd of his flock.
His flock.
Also, he saw Paul's zeal, Paul's great intelligence. He said, if I just turn it around,
Right.
instead of persecuting the church, work for the church, and he became a great church builder.
To see the value
Yeah.
of the church.
Yes. So that's good. And so with Matthew, he saw him sitting there writing and all that, taking notes and keeping things. And so now Matthew, he said that he could write the gospel for me.
Most definitely.
Wow. It makes you stop and wonder what is he seeing in me? What? And that's what you can do, my sisters and brothers. What do you see in me? What is it that you want me to do that perhaps I'm not doing?
One of the greatest downsides to many of us in our Christian walk is that we've never asked God, what is it that you would have me to do?
Well, that's true too.
Part of it is sometimes it's going to take us out of our comfort zone.
I said, hello. I didn't ask him to teach. Wasn't my idea. It was his idea.
Oh, yes.
When they said, well, you're a teacher. You got that one wrong. No. Here I am.
I will never forget the day that God said, all I want you to do is make my people think. And I said, okay.
Think about what? Yeah. Okay.
Right,
Think
yeah.
about what?
There were a lot of things that I felt they could have been thinking about. But the other part to that was I saw an opportunity, or the opportunity presented itself the very next day for me to do some teaching. And this was in a vocational setting. And it is one thing my background is medical. So it was one thing for me to teach medical lab procedures. That was what I was comfortable doing. But once I got taken out of that lab environment and found out there was really nothing that I couldn't teach, it was just all in the presentation and all in the information that was presented. Right.
Yeah.
But I also remember foolishly saying the last thing I wanted to teach was Sunday school. I will never forget that.
Oh, he's got a good sense of humor.
Oh, he's got a great
I
sense of
bet he
humor.
laughed and said, watch
Oh,
this.
he's still laughing.
He said, watch this.
Right.
And I guess he laughed every Thursday and once said, what, David?
So Matthew, not only did his name get changed,
Okay, what else got changed?
but just like me, the destination got changed. I got taken out of one environment and brought to another.
Okay.
And I can honestly say it's been interesting.
Oh, to say the least.
And many times it's been more enjoyable just because I know for whom I'm doing it.
Okay.
It is not for my pastor.
Mm-hmm.
It is not for my family's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Because your mama was a teacher.
oh, cause my mama and my daddy were teachers.
Oh, so you're not teaching for that reason?
Oh no.
Okay.
It's because that's what God called me to do.
God called you to do it.
Right.
And without a doubt, you know that He called you to do it, and so you're doing it.
Most definitely.
So you're doing it.
And getting great enjoyment out of it.
Okay, let's talk about that a little. Just for a moment. You getting great enjoyment out of it? Let me ask you this. You ever get tired?
Physically, we all get tired.
Well, I don't think I was talking about physically. I guess maybe I was talking about you study your lesson, you get all ready, you get hyped, you got a good lesson, and then you go in, either one or two things that have folks don't show up,
Folks don't show up.
or else they come with a hidden agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, okay, you feed them every Thursday. Maybe they coming for the bread. Because, I mean, you know, even Jesus said,
Mm-hmm.
coming for the bread? Y'all coming for the bread.
Right.
What about that? How you feel?
Here's that other part. As long as I know what I'm called to do, as long as I'm doing what I'm called to do,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let everything else fall where it's supposed to fall.
Okay.
Prayerfully, somewhere along the way, they're going to get edified and God's going to get glorified,
Okay.
regardless of who's present.
Okay.
Because you know that old statement, every closed eye ain't sleep,
Yeah.
or every shut eye ain't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Just because people are not necessarily paying attention doesn't mean that they're not hearing everything that you're saying.
Okay, that's true.
So it goes, it makes our lives go from that unprofitable state, because you can't always judge everything by money,
Okay.
to being able to later on see the fruits of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
In Matthew's case, he went from collecting taxes to collecting truth.
Collecting truth.
And
yeah.
there's nothing like spreading the truth.
Yeah, and he wrote a tremendous gospel. Okay, before our time is up, we talked about what Jesus saw.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about what Jesus, when they saw, he changed.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about what's the results. We never talk about results and things.
Well,
What's the results? What happened?
one of the things that I enjoy the most started with verse 10, where he, it says, later Matthew invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests.
Okay.
So not only did he go follow Jesus, but he wanted Jesus to come home with him. And as a result of Jesus coming home with him, he sort of threw a party.
That's where we get that Matthew part.
That Matthew party can be a bad boy, because not only do you get a chance to introduce your old friends to a new life,
Whoa, yes.
but you also get a chance to expose them to a new reality, because you don't have to stay where you are. Everybody has the opportunity to do some advancing. The thing is, you have to be willing to do it. If you make that step, if you make that effort, you'd be surprised how God is going to open up doors and cause things to blossom in your life. Many times I'll use this as my unsure standard. When you first asked me to come be with you today,
What you say?
I hemmed and hawed.
Who you talking to?
Right. Can't you find somebody else?
Yeah. And this is the third. I thought, okay, this third time is the charm, but
But the comfort level of just talking with a friend
yes,
makes life a whole lot easier, and is one thing for us to share as friends. Is something else to invite some others to join in our friendship and our conversation.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about Jesus and how Jesus has the ability to change lives.
absolutely,
Because it is only Jesus that can change our lives.
absolutely.
We don't have to come already prepared.
No, in
Uh,
fact, the least prepared we are, the better off we
the
are.
better off everything is going to be.
Yeah. You know, you said something earlier that like he invited all of his old friends, and the old friends being tax collectors and those he palled around with.
Yeah, because a part of that group that he palled around with was who you mentioned one of them earlier, our sisters of the street.
Yeah. And we don't want to be, see, and that's where we make our problem when
Right.
when he calls us come on up a little bit higher.
Right.
We forget that we need to reach back and bring somebody else up a little higher, because I read it and then I was just amazed when the pastor said it yesterday when he was preaching the funeral, and I had just read that either that morning or the day before, that it says every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And if we can keep that in our mind that we got a past, it's past, but it's still there.
Prayerfully is past.
Preferably, yeah, you're right. Some of us, it ain't too far. But every sinner has a future.
Right.
And the future doesn't have to be what we did in the past.
Well, here's that other part that some of us forget.
What's that?
We're still sinners.
Oh yeah. Sure.
We prayerfully, we're not totally sinless,
No.
but prayerfully we do
Sin less.
sin less.
Yes.
And as a result, just that comfort in knowing that we too have a future
Yes.
should give us a little joy.
Oh,
Should give us a little pep in our step.
absolutely.
You mentioned reaching back to extend the hand to those that are in our past. The one thing that sometimes I find it comforting to do is to do just that. To reach back and extend my hand to those of my past, prayerfully bringing them along. And that key word there is prayerfully bringing them along.
Right.
Because many times you get resistance just because you changed.
Absolutely.
There's that idea that just because you changed doesn't mean that they're ready to make the change.
That's true. That's true. I agree with you. I agree with you. And because you make the change, and they may not want or not ready to make the change, we need to understand that if they don't want to make the change and they're not ready to make the change, we cannot force them.
All you can do is keep praying.
Keep praying, but we don't need to just, because see, I had a cousin once that I would talk to her about Jesus. One day she saw me coming, and she said, "I don't want to hear that Jesus,"
Right.
and it hurt me to my heart. I thought, and I got a little huffed about it. Well, all right, you know when I would talk to you about Jesus again.
Right.
But he said, no, that's not the attitude you take.
Nope.
That lets you know that you're getting through, because the enemy, and I would have you to know, before she passed, she had come back to Christ, served as president of the missionary in her church, and went on out shouting the glory. And I said before she left, she said, I want my funeral be preached by my cousin pastor. Now I wasn't no pastor, but
Right.
she said, that's my cousin pastor. All, and just a little bit more, if I had been as thin-skinned as I was, because I thin-skinned, but she said, I don't want to hear nothing about that child. I thought, what? But the Spirit said, you go right
Right.
back in there. And that's what we have to do. We've got to understand, and I think we learned this from Matthew, is when he throws that party, that all of us need to be just where he was, learning at the feet of Jesus, that we need to bring in those that we have palled around with, because, you know, I get ready. In fact, this summer went to Cincinnati, and I'm a Dodger fan. Yes, I'm a Dodger fan, and not Cincinnati. I went to Cincinnati because Dodger was there.
Right.
And guess what? So there's several of us who we went. It didn't matter that it was enemy territory.
Right.
Everybody around us had on Cincinnati red and all that kind of stuff. I wore my Dodger blue, had my Dodger shirt on, and was comfortable there. You cannot turn me away.
Right.
And that's the way we have to be about Christ.
Right.
You may not want to hear it, but you don't want to hear it today, come see me tomorrow, because you're going to need him.
Well, and a whole lot of times it's also our approach.
Yeah.
Because we can come off a little sanctimonious. We can come off a little too
Holy
religious.
than thou.
Yes. We can come off with God says, "Let our light shine." We got that bad boy on super bright. We're trying to blind somebody. And that ain't sometimes that ain't what we're called to do.
You need to keep on low watch.
Sometimes we need to barely have it flickering,
Yeah.
just so that people see there's something different about her. There's something different about him.
All right.
And that will also be that draw.
There you go. There you go. All right, I see that our time is about up. It's so good to have you, David.
It's my pleasure.
I just want to say this last thing. Matthew's conversion shows that Jesus saves anyone who will truly follow him. The hated, the unjust, the traitor, the thief, the dissatisfied, the immoral, the non-religious, the bitter, the loneliness, the sick person, the life without a purpose, whatever. We want you to know that Jesus says, follow me. It was good to have you here.
It was my pleasure to
And
be
the
here.
only that we, the church, should begin to see as Jesus wants. And in fact, as we go off, he said, riddle, I see something you don't see. What do you see, Jesus? He said, I see the lonely. I see the sick. I see the lost. I see the least. I want my church, I want my people to see the same thing.
I see the disenfranchised.
There you go. There you
I
go.
see those that grew up in church and for whatever reason have become turned off by church.
Disillusioned by the church.
Right.
He wants us to see.
Right.
And we invite you, riddle, read. I see something you don't see. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Next week, I'll see you.